be up in Canada, and I was coming back down across the border, and they stopped me at the Canadian Customs and Immigration. They stopped me going out. Huh. I could see stopping me coming in, but I don't know. I guess if you look like me now, they stop you no matter which way you're going. So anyway, I was up there, and I was stopped, and they were going through my papers behind the glass booth, and I was the only one stopped. Everybody else was, sure, go right on ahead. And it was like late at night, I was sitting there alone. And while I was sitting in there waiting, just by accident, I happened to be singing this song to myself, like, inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow, oh yeah. And all of a sudden, a guy come flying out the booth. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, excuse me, sir, but what's that you're doing, eh? I looked at the guy, I said, hey, I'm singing a song. He said, I know that, sir, but what language is that song in? I said, what language? It's in American! And I looked at him, and I suddenly realized this guy was about 20 years old, probably just out of school, and this was his first job, and he didn't know what an inch was. I suddenly realized this was no Dingleberry folk song I was singing. I suddenly realized this song was significant. This song was about something. This song was about the last spot, about the last bastion, about the last place where we still have the poetry of mile after mile in our lives and not kilometer after kilometer.
It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio. Flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome at 877-711-5611.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes. And true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in demand.
This hour is brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
Well, good planets are in demand.
Right.
Right?
Ho, ho, ho. So here we are. This is what happens when you get past Thanksgiving.
Where's your top hat?
Oh, it's here.
So for anybody who's watching us on Facebook,
it doesn't go well with the headsets. Hold on.
it's a look.
Ow. Ow.
Careful.
Now I got to duck down.
There we go.
If I do it like this, well.
So if you're watching us on Facebook
There we
at the
go.
Mike Nowak
That's
Show,
the full regalia. Oh, well. Take
There
a
we
photo
are.
here. Yes. I'm willing to post for the people in the studio here. Okay.
alrighty.
And we got to get you with Skeet with a top hat on later on, I think.
Sounds good to me.
All right. That is our buddy Skeet from Bartlett Tree Experts. It must be time to talk tree care. 877-711-5611 or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any of that cool stuff. Hold on. Let me get rid of that. Thank you.
And if you're watching us on Facebook at the Mike Nowak Show, please do us a favor. Like it, share it, start a watch party, and like the page.
Yes. And by the way, a tribute to my buddy Dan Costa from Fern Growers Greenhouse in Hinsdale. He said, when are you going to, hey, he said, complimented me on a song the other week and then said, are you going to play Arlo Guthrie, the garden song? I went, the garden song, Arlo Guthrie. And then I listened to it and he said, oh, yeah, I know that song. But what I didn't know was that part, the bit we played at the top of the show, he did a PBS special in 1987 or thereabouts and did that little riff on inch by inch, row by row. So that's, thank you, Dan Costa. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We're talking trees today. We'll be right back. Now. Welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. What are you laughing at? You just saw something.
Oh, yes, on Facebook. Mike looks like Scrooge's well-adjusted cousin.
Well, that might maybe so. Of course, I need the hat. It's always about the hat. And again, sorry for you folks just listening on the radio, because I got the jingle bells, I got the hat, I got the cravat.
You're styling.
And I got Skeet.
We're loving life.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
And as a matter of fact...
And we have bagworms.
And we got bagworms. Because Skeet from Bartlett Tree Experts not always, but often brings in visual aids for us when we talk trees. And it's amazing that you've got this stuff, because we've had hard freezes, we've had snow, we've had wind, we've had all kinds of stuff as we lurch towards winter. So what do you want to tell us? I see you got bagworms here. They're not live like they were last year when you brought them in, are they?
Correct. What we want to talk about is people think in a dormant season that we go to sleep, the trees go to sleep, and there's not a lot of activity out there. The dormant season is a season for tree care, and that season includes inspection. And without the leaves on the trees, we can inspect the trees at a different level. We can look for insects and disease, and sometimes that confuses some people of what are we looking for. And we've got some samples right here of bagworms on spruce trees we can identify in the winter. We've got magnolia leaves and magnolia branches, and we can see the scale on the magnolia tree. And last year we had a little bit of fun. We're looking at magnolia leaves with a lot of black. People interpret that as fungus on the leaves, and that's actually where the magnolia scale eats the nutrients it deposits, and that's a code word for poops, the sugars, and the sugars become the sooty mold, and it turns the leaves black, and that attracts the bees. And so we can look at the magnolia trees with the black leaves on them. They're holding their leaves a little bit. So those are a couple items we can look at. We can also look at ash trees with emerald ash borer and look for exit holes and woodpecker damage.
You mean once some of the leaves have dropped, but you can see them. But you can see them on the trunk as well, right?
Well, depending, Mike, you're right. Sometimes in the lower canopy of the tree, the trunk is bigger. We don't see that type of action. We see the activity in the top parts of the tree, the smaller branches, and that's hidden by the leaves. And so once we lose the leaves, the dormant season is a season for tree care, and that includes pruning oaks and elms. Oaks and elms need to be pruned in the dormant season.
Explain why, because and this is really important for oaks and elms.
Absolutely, and some municipalities have ordinances. You can only prune oaks and elms at a certain time of the year, so it's something to call and ask your local municipality, and if you have an oak and elm, now's the time to get calling. Oak trees have a possibility of oak wilt, and that vector is carried by a beetle, and so that beetle is dormant in the wintertime, dormant season, and Dutch elm disease can be transferred again by a beetle carrying the disease, and that beetle is dormant in the wintertime, so we want to do the pruning of oaks and elms in the dormant season, generally that December to end of March, April time frame.
Are any of the oak species more apt to have the beetle attracted to it, or does it kind of hit all of them?
It can hit all of them. Great question, Peggy. The red oaks are more susceptible than the white oak family. So there's two basic families, the red oak family with the pointed leaves and the white oak family with the rounded leaf margins. Yes.
And so the burr would be in the white oak.
Burr would be in the white oak family. And the white oak is in the white oak family, and the swamp white oak
is in the orange oak family.
No, white oak family.
You were doing so well there, Peggy, and it was just leading you forward.
And I was reaching for the bell.
There you go.
Yes.
And one of the things that's been going on here and probably other parts of the Midwest is we had this thing, Peggy and I were talking about it last week, and it seems to have resolved itself, and you actually sent out a newsletter. I get your newsletter, and you wrote about the leaves being held on to the trees. We had a freeze here, a couple of hard freezes, and there were still a lot of leaves left on the trees, and people were saying, well, what's going on here? Why is that happening? And you had a wonderful explanation in your newsletter. Why don't you tell us all about it?
Well, thank you. Yes. As The petiole attaches to the branch, and there's a bud close or underneath.
Petiole is the stem, basically, of the leaf.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's what's attached to the branch or the twig, whatever you've got there. Yeah.
And that conducts the sugars and the nutrients in the water, getting from the little roots up to the leaves. And as the tree starts to go dormant, there's a natural process of the chlorophyll coming out of the leaves. And as that comes down the fibrous petiole into the branch, that naturally breaks down, and then that drops off the tree. Now, there's some trees like oaks, beech trees that'll hold their leaves, and that's all normal. That's all Mother Nature hard at work, and that's okay. That doesn't mean the tree is sick
They
or
wait
ill.
till you've already cleaned out the gutters, and then they drop them.
Exactly. Pear trees just wait. They just stand there, sit there, and they wait till you're cleaned up, and then they drop. So you can count
but
on.
there are other trees like that too, and like
Oaks,
I've got a Cornus mass that does kind of the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
this week it went and they all just came right
Yes.
off. So why did that happen?
Yes. Well, this last week we were very, very fortunate. I mean, it's been a frustrating weather year without a doubt, and yet this last week we had that light rainfall with a light wind, and that was enough to gently pull down a lot of those leaves. And that was fantastic for the trees. We've had some storm damage. We've had broken limbs, split limbs. We've had that first wet, heavy snowfall with the leaves on the trees. That caused a lot of damage. And so dropping of these leaves, reducing that sail effect was fantastic for the trees.
But how does nature overcome the desire of the tree to hold on to those leaves? Because there's like a cellular thing that happens with it, that, as you were just explaining.
Yeah.
And so what is it? Why didn't? Okay, so the freeze interrupted that process, basically, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And at some point, then, does the tree just give up the leaf as we move down the road, because it's eventually going to do it anyway? Gravity and everything else is going to play a role.
Exactly. That's exactly what happens. We'd like that to happen sooner than later, and the trees that drop their leaves naturally sooner were holding on to their leaves, and that's unnatural for those types of trees, so it makes them more susceptible to storms and wind damage and snow and ice.
Yeah.
And that, again, that light rain with a little bit of wind dropped a lot of leaves. As we drive around now, we look, that situation is not prevalent like we saw 2 weeks ago.
Now, you missed the opportunity because, as Scott said in his newsletter, when you go to Thanksgiving dinner, you could say, yeah, it's the morescence is causing the problem in the trees there, and but now you can try it for Christmas when they ask it. But they'll have forgotten about that. We'll be in a snowstorm, and then nobody will care.
Yes, the Skeet's tree friends were having some fun with that.
Did they write and tell you about that? Did they throw it out at their relatives over things? You know, that better that than politics, I got to tell you.
Absolutely, yes.
So yeah, morescence. I was checking out the morescence on my back trees.
It was a great year for morescence. Yeah,
exactly. What kind of a year? All right. What kind of a year was it for color? I had the feeling in this area, I did not see as much color. I know that there were colorful trees. I did see colorful trees. What reports are you hearing about that?
That was this fall?
Yeah, this fall.
Did I miss it?
Oh,
yeah. There was a lot of snow.
Yeah, I kind of got busy and blinked, and I missed the fall of this year. This year, there are certainly some trees that will be prevalent to show off. The blaze maples, just a great tree for the fall color. They're going to show themselves. Other trees, ash.
Yeah, I saw the maples. Some of the maples were just gorgeous. They were fantastic.
Yeah. Maples,
and
bigger leaves hold their color. Yes.
I was joking about the snow, but the maples look fantastic in the snow.
Yes.
It was just this brilliant orange on Halloween.
That's it.
It was like the perfect.
And then we got the snowfalls, and there it goes. So this year, some trees were very prevalent. Other trees with that early snow just dropped their leaves, held their leaves, didn't have the fall color. It was not a brilliant year for fall color.
And one of the things we talked about when Scott was on the show, Scott Jameson also from Bartlett Tree Experts, There's your ding, Scott.
He is watching, by the way, and
Is
he's
he?
sending questions for you.
Oh no, it's Stump the Skeet Day. Last time it was Stump the Scott Day, and he was talking about trees. At the time he was on, it was warm and wet, and some of the trees were really, really lush. And we were talking about how happy they were. Why would you let go of your leaves if you're still manufacturing energy for the tree?
Sure.
And
It was that warmth, and then all of a sudden that quick cold came in, and like you said, it froze and held their leaves, and that fall color was absent in some trees.
So what kind of a year was it for bagworms and for some of the other goodies you have here out on the counter?
Sure. Bagworms that, we talk about the polar vortex, boy, it really zapped a lot of bagworms.
Did it?
So-
Okay.
so
So
that
that
was-
was last, now we're going back to last January, at the end of January.
Yeah.
So, for our listeners who can't see the bagworms here, what are bagworms?
Oh, how sad if they
Well, wait a
can't see
second.
the
Let's hold-
bagworms.
Come on, we can hold these up. Let's see if I can find a camera here. All right, I know I can do this. All right.
Nope.
No, wait. I got to know which way I'm going. Here we go.
Up. Raise your hand a little. Turn it the other way. No,
Yeah.
because you're actually catching the camera behind you.
No, I'm looking at you in your picture.
Right, but you need to turn it because you can't see the bagworm. The bagworms.
Well,
Turn
let's-
your hand 180.
This is the best I can do.
There you go. So what is a bagworm?
A bagworm is a little worm that grows and creates his or her own home using the needles or leaves of the tree that it's on, and has this little silken thread that holds on to the branch of the tree and then meanders up and down the branch of the tree and eats the foliage off the branches. They're very pesky and they're very frustrating.
Are they dangerous to the health of the tree?
They certainly can. Boy, they can multiply very quickly. And a needle tree like a spruce, pine, fir, arborvitae, they'll defoliate section by section, and they're pesky.
Inch by inch.
Row by row.
Right.
Boy, and you can count them on the backside where you can't see them, and all of a sudden you go to that backside and you say, "Yikes! What happened there?" So. Annual inspections, really important. This is something you can do yourself.
So
Now,
what would people be looking for?
You'll be looking for these little bags, these little worms, these little cocoons that are dangling.
And you say bags, but they look like, how?
They look like ornaments.
Yeah,
or they
kinda
look
do,
like little
yeah.
mini pine cones, except with needles and not.
And a worm crawling out of
But
it.
better description. Thank you, Peggy. Yeah, they look like little pine cones. And the difference is they're not a cone so much as they are the needles, the brown needles or leaves from that species of tree. Yes.
All right.
What an innovative! I mean, just from a critter standpoint, what an innovative thing that is. It's just amazing.
Mother Nature is just wonderful. It's so creative, and the kinds of things that insects do to survive and thrive and multiply.
Yeah, and birds will bring them in. So it's not a type of insect where you'll see the bottom first or the top. You'll see it patchy because the birds will bring them into the plant.
Okay, we got a break here. That is Skeet from Bartlett Tree Experts. When we come back, we're going to talk, you touched on it, why winter is such a good time to take care of your trees. A lot of arborists like you, Skeet, consider this prime tree care time. And we'll have an explanation about that. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Welcome, everybody. We hope you stick around.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, make it so. Make it so. Make it so. Man, it doesn't show signs of stopping. And I brought me some tea Earl Grey hot. The lights are turned way down low. Make it so. Make it so. Make it so. When we finally kiss goodnight. How I hate going out in the storm. But if you...
Really?
Shut up, Wesley! All the way home, I'll be...
Warm. Oh, the fire is slowly dying. And my dear...
We're still goodbye, then. But
As long as you love me.
so,
Make it so.
make it so.
Make it so.
And now we're officially in the holiday season because I can play the Make It So. And as you can see, I added a little.
It was slightly augmented, yes.
It was a slightly augmented version, and I've got that here someplace, but I can't find it. So, oh, that's a shame because. Wait a second.
Make it so.
Make it so. There we are. Okay, this is the augmented part of it.
Shut up, Wesley.
There we go. Welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki and Skeet.
And the season's only starting.
I know, and it gets worse for the next few weeks. Yeah, exactly, all of it. We're talking about your trees in the winter. One of the best times ever to work on a tree. Why is that, Skeet?
Well, thank you, Mike. Without the leaves, we can have some fun with trees. Certainly, we talked about oaks and elms as a need to do in the dormant season.
Right, they're different from others. That's about the only time you really want to do that.
Exactly.
The pruning.
The other idea is when the dormant season, we can have sometimes better access to the trees. The plants underneath are dormant.
You're not
you've got
tromping through gardens.
We're not tromping through gardens. The hostas, the perennials, they're dormant. Tall grasses are cut back. Boy, we can have a lot more fun taking care of people's trees and meet
You
to
say
exceed.
fun, isn't it a job?
It is a job, but when you're not. When you can have better access and meet the client's needs all at the same time.
Yeah, you
Boy,
can see the shape. There it is. And now you rub your hands together and say, okay, let's have at it. Here's a question that just popped in my head. I hadn't actually thought about this before. Well, you got a couple of arborists on site. I'm sure there's a crew chief. But when you're looking at a tree and you're deciding to prune it, do you have consultations among each other and say, well, I think that branch should go, and the other person says, oh, no, I think maybe that one should go. And you guys go a little back and forth on that?
Absolutely. And the first step is to do the job site safety review, to walk obstacles, hazards, what dangers do we have on the job site?
Yeah.
And so safety is critical. Power lines, exactly. Slip, trip, and fall. I mean, that's a huge situation, and we need to be aware of, especially in the wintertime.
Well, and as we know, Bartlett is one of the leaders in safety in tree care.
Thank you.
You guys even get a ding for that.
Woohoo! So part of that job site safety review is the crew leader, crew chief, foreman, taking a look at the trees with the crew, determining the right people for the right tree, for the right job, and there is some consultation. And it includes the tree inspection. And in the winter, we can see areas that we couldn't see in the summer. So there's hollows, cavities, decay that we may not have seen.
Cracks.
So, cracks.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, these are items that we need to be aware of just as an everyday awareness of what we're doing. That tree is our lifeline. We are in that tree, working on that tree, and that tree is where we are stationed and set up, tied in, and secured. So the inspection is part of what we do for our own safety and for their client's safety. And going with that, you're right, Mike. With no leaves on a tree, boy, people think, again, what do you do in the wintertime? Well, it is a great time of the year, especially for little trees, because little trees feature positive growth and form. We can really inspect them, as you're saying, as a team and look at them. And some little trees may need just 4 or 5 pruning cuts, but boy, now we've really set that tree up for future positive growth form.
You want to get to the tree early. When we went down to the Bartlett Research Laboratory in North Carolina, and I'm always mentioning this because we saw so many cool things down there. And one of the things they showed us, they said, okay, here's a tree that was pruned early in its life. Here's the shape it has now. Here's the tree we let go, and it's got some real problems now. And once you get a mature tree that has problems, it's really hard to address those, isn't it?
Absolutely. And those trees, when they're small, again, we can make 3-4 pruning cuts in there to decrease the double leaders, to give it some structure, give it
Explain what a double
Yeah,
leader
what's a
is.
double leader?
Double leaders, you'll see on some trees they'll grow and they'll have parallel branching going straight up. Blaze maples would be an example of that. Pear trees would have
as in
many,
calorie pear.
as in calorie
So
pear.
instead of
one
branch or one leader going straight up, you'd have the 2 or 3 side splits.
Correct. Yes.
Right, right, parallel to each
Yeah.
other and competing to be the dominant trunk.
Correct.
There's a couple of Norway maples on my block that way.
Norway maples,
Yeah.
a lot of maples will have that. And if those trees can be pruned when they're smaller, we can define that leader and give it that future positive growth form that we're looking for. Yes.
And speaking of, you had a question there? Go ahead.
This was more to winter pruning. So if you're
Well, go to
that
winter
one.
pruning because I want to come back to calorie pears in a second.
Okay.
So go ahead.
So this might be an obvious question, but how do you tell in the wintertime where the dead limbs are?
Yeah. We get asked that a lot, and it's a great question because people say, well, how do you know it's dead up there? Guess what?
It has no leaves.
We're up there. So if I showed you a dead branch
if
and
I
a
point
live
to
branch.
my head and I say it's dead up there, everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Okay, so I'm just saying if you're doing a walkthrough, though, through
Sure.
someone's yard and looking at an oak,
Yeah.
how do you figure out before you even get up there, okay, that's the dead one, not just where I have to shape it, but that's
Sure.
the dead limb, that's got to come off, that's
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. What do we see on some of the branches here? We see on some of these being a magnolia tree. That one has no buds on them whatsoever.
Okay.
You think of a magnolia tree, those big fuzzy buds at the end. There's no buds.
Right.
So we're looking at that laciness. We're looking for buds. We're looking for decay on the branches. Sometimes you can see the bark flaking off those branches. You can see staghorns or dieback decay. You can see that visually, especially on a sunny day without some clouds. You can really see the silhouette of the tree. Those items can be pointed out.
So those
Yes.
things get to be sort of second nature for you guys. You see the lack of buds, you see the flaking, you go, oh yeah, that's a dead area. Let's see how far down the dead area goes, right?
And the terminal growth on some lower branches.
Yeah.
Different trees grow at different rates, and we can see, geez, this tree has a shortened growth segment. Something's not right with this tree.
So when people want to go out and examine their own trees, what do you tell them to look for? The same kinds of things, right?
Yeah, well, I would tell them to get a hold of an accredited tree care company with a certified arborist, such as Bartlett Tree Experts, and set a time to meet with a certified arborist and take a walk with. And really have us explain, show, get to know your trees. These are large living assets, and if they're not cared for, they're large liabilities.
Yeah,
and we don't want your tree to become that way.
Well,
and I'm sure you don't want that
That's
either.
a really good point, is that people can think of it, they think of trees as assets to their property. If you're going to sell your property, you got a wonderful mature oak on the property, people look at your property differently.
Yes.
If it's crumbling, they look at it differently also. And they think, okay, what's it going to cost me to get that? And is it going to fall on my house? I have a friend who moved into a home in Chicago back in the 90s. The morning he moved into his house, the tree fell on the house.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was his welcoming gift.
Yeah.
And of course, he had a little conversation with the previous owners, and I'm not sure how it was resolved, but they had to know that tree was compromised. And
we do get the calls in the spring. Could you look at my tree? And I'm sorry, your tree is dead. How long have you lived here? Oh, we moved in this winter. Well, you bought yourself a dead tree.
Yeah.
And
some people don't know that if they're doing it in the winter, right?
They don't know that. And so being an asset, you need to invest into that asset, and part of that is having an accredited certified arborist inspect that tree with you.
Right.
And let's take a look together as the green team, homeowner, arborist, working together.
Even in the dormant season, you can bring a certified arborist to look at the tree, and the arborist will tell you whether that tree is still viable. It won't be able to know for sure how it's going to leaf out, but they can tell you if it's alive.
And we can start the tree care process.
All right. That's Skeet from Bartlett Tree Experts. We have more tree care coming up. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki.
Oh! 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 These! Oh! 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 Alan! Oh! 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 These! Alan! Alan!
Shut up, Wesley.
And there we have that again.
We can thank Randall for that one.
Yeah, that's in honor of Randall, who used to be our engineer and put that together for us many, many moons ago. But it allows us to play.
Alan! Alan!
And I don't know if you are familiar with that, but
As I said during the break, there's so many holiday songs that
Skeet, I'm going to
just
tell you,
never sound the same.
Go online, look up Alan, Alan,
and BBC.
and BBC, and you will know exactly what we're talking about.
Sounds like a plan.
Welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. So pleased to have Skeet in studio. This has been a great year for us and Bartlett Tree Experts. We've had a bunch of different experts come into the studio and talk to us about trees. And we love getting questions. And we get them mostly on Facebook, I got to admit. Every now and then we get a call, 877-711-5611. We'll take that as well. During the break, Skeet told us an amazing story, and we have to talk about it on air because he brought in a couple of little books. One's called Winter Tree Finder, and it's by a woman named Mary Thielgard. I'm sorry, May Thielgard Watts and Tom Watts, it says here.
And the other book is Tree Finder, a manual for the identification of trees by their leaves.
And these are little books that you can stick in your pocket, back pocket, and go out on a hike.
Yes.
And we're going to have to get Ellie, you're going to have to put these online, get this information. These are the coolest books. Now, tell us, you got a little backstory behind these books.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you, Mike and Peggy. These are Tree Finder books, and there's also Weed Finder, Animal Finder. So you go on, you can get these.
Also by May Watts?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. And who's May Watts?
I have no idea.
Oh my goodness, May Watts is from Illinois.
I'm such a loser. What can I tell you?
Having fun with Mike and Peggy.
I'm going to make you do this now before the end of the hour for Scott Jameson. Stand by.
Okay. Taking over the show. May Watts is an environmentalist, a class act, somebody we really need to give huge credit to and kudos to. Years and years ago, she was on the cutting edge of conservation. She started the Prairie Path. She was one of the first women instructors at the Morton Arboretum. We can find these books at the Morton Arboretum. You can go online and buy them. The backstory to this is when I was a young whippersnapper going to school in upstate New York, Paul Smith College, Syracuse University. We had these little books as a college student as a way to identify trees. One, because they're really cheap, and two, they were pictures, so we didn't have to be all that brilliant to learn how to identify trees. So,
and they're elegant in the way they're arranged. You know, it really makes sense on how to ID a tree here.
Yeah, and now they've broken down to different regions. Mm-hmm. So the ones I have here are for the Midwest, and so you're identifying Midwest trees. And so I studied on this book and came out to Illinois 30 years ago and kept these little books with me and moved into Naperville and looked and there's this May Watts Park. My goodness, look at that, May Watts Park. Geez, I remember this name, May Watts, and getting into the business and learning about the Prairie Path and this May Watts. And I've had her book, and she's taught me a tremendous amount, just a brilliant lady. And then I had the opportunity to be in Naperville, and she lived in Naperville, and the owners of her house, they're looking to renovate and bring that house back to when May Watts had it and called me in to take care of those trees. So just an incredible opportunity to give back to a lady who's given me so much over the years.
That's kind of goosebumpy.
It really is. And so we took care of her house and brought it back and took care of her maple that had multi-leads in there and did some crown reduction and structure pruning on the maple tree. The owners were so excited about the history and our excitement with taking care of those trees. They let us know that they went into the attic of the house and they had the original first edition Tree Finder book.
Wow.
Ooh.
And so they gave me the first run May Watts
So
Tree
you
Finder.
have a first edition.
I have a first edition. It's in a glass cage in our in our family room that doesn't get touched, and it's a real prize possession.
Surrounded by 5 vicious dogs. So that
Exactly.
nobody can get to that.
Surrounded
Yes.
by bagworms.
Yes.
Five
yes.
vicious bagworms.
So there's your Google assignment,
Wow.
and
That
if
is
you've
awesome.
got
That's
you've
amazing.
got some kids you want to learn about conservation and a woman in the industry that really was cutting edge, that really transformed the Midwest and the western suburbs. Between
And
the
it's-
Prairie Path, the books she's written,
Uh-huh.
the teaching, her instruction, these are some excellent
Yeah.
kid-friendly. Let's get
And
outside.
adult-friendly.
And
Yeah.
adult-friendly.
Adult and kid
And
friendly.
this reminds me of some of the old bird books as well that,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
really explain
And the name
things.
is May, M-A-Y, Thielgard, Theilgaard, Watts, W-A-T-T-S, and Tom Watts. And you can look up Winter Tree Finder. You can look up Tree Finder. And the difference, of course, is in the summer, you can identify trees by their leaves, which helps a great deal. What happens when you can't see the leaves? It stumps a lot of people. But,
Sure.
you know, that's why you have the Winter Tree Finder,
Yeah.
and there are other clues that you have to the identity of a tree.
Yeah, and you know, and so many parents say, "I don't know what to do with the kids outside in the winter, and I don't know how to do this." And boy, these are great books. Kids and parents can work together and then be outside and enjoy. You know, days like today are good outside days.
Yeah. All right. We're going to do a little thing. Grab your sheet there. This is for Scott Jameson. As those of you who listen on the local show know, every year I do a 10-minute version of It's a Wonderful Life, and that will be on our show on December 22nd.
It's a wonderful slice.
It's a wonderful slice of It's a Wonderful Life, and I have a big cast of characters, but Scott wanted a preview, and he said, you got to make Skeet play George. All right, so we got 60 seconds. So you go ahead and you just start there, George, and then I'll jump in.
I'm in trouble, Mr. Potter. I need help. Through some sort of an accident, my company's short in their accounts. The bank examiner got there today, and I've got to raise $8,000 immediately.
I've suddenly become quite important. What kind of security would I have? George, you got any stocks?
No, sir.
Bonds, real estate, collateral of any kind?
I have some life insurance, $15,000 policy.
How much equity in it?
$500.
$500. And you ask me to lend you $8,000? Look at you. You used to be so cocky. You were going to go out and conquer the world. You once called me a warped, frustrated old man. What are you but a warped, frustrated young man? Miserable little clerk crawling here on your hands and knees and begging for help. No securities, no stocks, no bonds. Nothing but a miserable little $500 equity in a life insurance policy. You're worth more dead than alive. And that's where we're going to cut it, because that's what Scott Jameson won. That's the tease for the 22nd. Skeet, thank you so much for coming in the studio as always. It's been wonderful.
Peggy and Mike, always a pleasure. Really appreciate
Go
the help
to
and support.
Bartlett.
And, go take a look at your trees.
Welcome to the second hour of the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. This hour is brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, root and bacon. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make.
There you go. Welcome back.
It's that season.
It is that season. It's the season of...
Shut up, Wesley.
All right. Now, I don't believe that we should be pounding Wesley
Poor Wesley.
into Out, please. Thank you. Pounding Wesley into dust.
Into a pulp.
But I just like, it's a cartoon punch. Just think that, folks, think of it
I
that
think
way.
it's a slap, not a punch.
Oh, it's a punch. It's definitely a punch.
Shut up, Wesley.
It's got that.
Oh, so it's a boom, boom.
I think it's a punch, but it's a cartoon punch. So there we go.
Are we back up on Facebook?
Apparently. Who knows? Anyway, there we go.
There we are.
You got to keep track of everything here. We got a few things we need to discuss before we get to our next guest. We're very excited to have in the studio with us. First of all, our friends at City Grange are doing something kind of fun. In addition to having the frozen
I'll start
robins,
the jingle bells on that one again.
You know, and you probably just heard on the commercial already that you can get your trees and wreaths and all kinds of cool stuff there at City Grange. But they're also having the frozen robins there on the 19th from 6:30 to 8. So come by and see us at 5500 North Western Avenue at Catalpa in Chicago. But they have started doing these interesting pop-up locations. One in the Beverly neighborhood.
Wow.
You knew this. You told me. What do you mean, wow?
No, but it's but now it's the South Side gets to go to City Grange too.
Now the South Side gets to enjoy City Grange, and their pop-ups are just weekends. Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays through December 15th, including today at Joplin Murray Studios, 9911 South Walden Parkway in Chicago. And today it's already open. It just opened from 10 to 5 p.m. And then again next weekend, and then the weekend after that. So if you're on the South Side and you want to enjoy City Grange, you can go to one of their pop-up locations. And the best way to find that is just go to citygrange.com.
Learn Shop Blossom. Learn Shop Jingle.
Learn Shop Ho Ho Ho. What else?
We also have Christy Weber. Christy Weber Farm and Garden has got a Winterfest coming up Saturday, December 7th, next Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. over at 2833 West Chicago Avenue in Chicago. As it says on their website, join us for a magical afternoon of holiday cheer, kids' crafts, wine tasting, gourmet chocolate, live music, and Santa.
Ho, ho, ho again.
And Santa on their website's wearing some sunglasses, so I think we're going to have a pretty cool Santa.
And, of course, shout out to Christy Weber because they helped us at the Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards this year, and we really appreciate their contribution to that. And they've been longtime friends of the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki.
Do you want to give a shout-out to our new sponsor?
Oh, yes. Yes. Hero Power. And you might have heard them a couple of weeks ago when we were talking to Lisa Albrecht about putting up solar in Illinois, and the guys from Hero Power, that was Ty and Brock, were doing their thing at Lincoln Hall in Chicago for Friends of the Chicago River. They had a
fundraiser.
Yeah, fundraiser and podcast, and they do a podcast, but they also run an alternative energy company called Hero Power. And the deal with that, and you can see it on our website, go to MikeNovak.net and just click on the Hero Power link. If you live in northern Illinois and you got ComEd and you want to get green energy, you want to get clean energy, and you don't want to pay any more than the utility charges, that's where you go. You go to Hero Power. That's their guarantee that you'll get the same rate as ComEd. So we're very happy to have them as a new sponsor. All right, speaking of sustainability, recycled paint is next. This is the holiday season now. This is my favorite Xmas carol, shall I say. Happy Xmas season, everybody.
And we lost a week with Thanksgiving being late, so we're really going to have to load the songs in.
And then when I get out of here, I'm running over to the Edward Hines Jr. VA Hospital near Maywood. In actually Hines, Illinois, they have their own zip code in their own area. I don't know if it's considered a village or what.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing some caroling for the vets today. It's very excited. We're going to have a group of the Frozen Robins come by and sing for the veterans there, set up by our friend Diane Ahrens, who owns a business called Piece of Cake Bakery in East Dundee, Illinois, and she is the
cookies.
Oh yeah, to die for. They're just, you buy cookies in a bakery sometimes. You go, that's okay. Yeah, I don't think that's their strong suit. Not with her. Oh boy, these are just fabulous cookies, and I'm hoping she brings some.
So if you are watching us on Facebook Live right now on the Mike Nowak Show or earthpaint.org, you will see Mike.
That's right. We're on
You
EarthPaint.
will see Mike all dressed up, and that's why.
And this is why. And speaking of EarthPaint, we have Chris McCarthy in the studio, who is the founder of EarthPaint.org. It's based in Wooddale, Illinois. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming down or up or sideways to the station, whatever. This is one of the most fascinating things I've heard of in a long time, and it was Peggy who introduced me to this because there's a piece in Natural Awakening Chicago magazine about EarthPaint. And for years, you've read, if you had paint and you were trying to dispose of it properly, basically the advice was, let it dry, throw it into the landfill. Yeah.
Put kitty litter in
it just hurts me so bad to hear that. Yeah.
That is not what you do, is it?
That used to be the way, and now there's a better way. And so this, opportunity to tell people that, you've got a product that can be recycled.
Mm-hmm. And we're talking latex paint, right?
Yeah, latex paint. Yeah.
Water-based.
Right.
And that's why they would say let it dry, because oil-based would take forever to do that. And
you don't want your garage or basement to smell like oil-based paint either. I mean, that's no fun.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you like that sort of thing, but
maybe you do.
Watching paint dry.
Yeah.
But
I do that a lot.
So how is it that you got involved in this?
Well, the short story is, so I've been a paint contractor for going on 15 years. And then when
you told me you had a marketing degree.
Well, yeah, that kind of went into it. There's a longer story.
Oh, okay.
So I'll give you the short version.
Okay, give me the short version here.
I'll start in the middle when EarthPaint came to be. So after painting thousands of homes and then getting my real estate license and trying to sell those homes, there was one thing that we had in common, and it was, what do I do with all this old paint that came with the house when I bought it, or previous owners even, and it's just accumulated. And I said, you know what, there's got to be a way. Let me look into it. And after a year or so, I realized that we could recycle this product.
But you probably also realized that nobody else was doing that?
In the Midwest, no, I'm the crazy guy that's kind of doing this thing. So
it was happening on the coasts.
There are some states that do fund it, and we're not that lucky. So
maybe we will get there.
Well, I hope so someday, if I have anything to do with it and get people excited about what it is that we do. But so I learned from those states on what kind of they were doing, and then we take it a step further because I felt it was really important to employ people who were having difficulty finding employment. So, we started to collect all of this paint and what we call batch together and restrain it, and that turned into EarthPaint, where we now do it 1,000 gallons a week.
What are some? And by the way, speaking of 1,000, I have thousands of questions for you. Okay, but you talked about employing people who otherwise might not be employed, but it's a particular kind of. I mean, it's not. In some places, when they say that, they mean previously incarcerated. And there are other kinds of difficult to employ people. What about in your business?
So my main specialty was trying to empower people that have special needs or disability, where you may have, you don't have to do that one job that everybody sees, pushing carts or whatever, because we have many different tasks at EarthPaint that can be done by really anyone. And when you're in our building, you're not disabled. We have something that you will be good at, and then we'll challenge you to find another task that you may not be good at that we can, build your skill set.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to mention it now so that I can mention it later, so folks know that you have a GoFundMe campaign going on right now.
Thank you. Yes.
And I've got the link at MikeNovak.net. If you go to GoFundMe, it's Save Our Special Needs Program. All right.
Which when I did that, I didn't realize that was going to be the whole URL. So it's kind of long. So if you go to earthpaint.org,
But
there's
it's direct.
It is, yeah. I mean, it sums up what we're trying to do.
Or you just go to my website. You can click right on that link. It'll take you right to the page. So there you go.
Yeah.
And what do you mentioned that you need to do this now because, of course, I didn't realize this, but it makes sense. There's a down season for painting and for people who are willing to bring in paint, right?
That's correct. I mean, I was listening to you guys earlier when you talk about this early cold snap. We didn't really have fall. And so generally in the fall, we're doing all of that final collection of paint, which gives us something to do throughout the winter. This year, that didn't really happen. We kind of shut down early. It gets cold. You can't leave paint outside to freeze. So we want to get all that stuff into our building so that we can process it and reprocess it. But then you have the other side where this paint product that we make, the sales slow down significantly with that too, because people are focused on the holidays. And so our GoFundMe page or all of the donations that we collect, whether it's through that or through Facebook, are really kind of solidifying the employment that we have through these tough months for us.
Yeah.
And you're trying to raise $15,000 before the end of the year. Now, if you look at the total they're looking at, it's a huge number. But $15,000 by the end of the year is a really reasonable goal, I think.
And you have a matching gift with that.
We do, yes. So, and that's really the big incentive and the big push for this year, because if we do raise $15,000, we'll have a $15,000 matching gift. But if we don't hit that $15,000, we don't get the match. So that's the incentive for us to really push and push and push and enlighten people and get people to, maybe offer slightly more than they probably would have, considering we want to get to that number as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And earthpaint.org is a nonprofit.
It is, yes. Yeah. There it is.
So for listeners who might say, but you sell paint, why are you a nonprofit? Why are you doing a fundraiser?
Well, because people don't know much about recycled paint. There isn't much of a market for it right now, and people don't realize that it's a really great product. And so in order for us to kind of fund our activities to actually make that paint and have it available for people again, we have to go the traditional route of fundraising. So
I understand that. I mean, you're just ramping up the business right now. How long has the business been around?
About 6 years.
Okay.
And we've grown from about about the size of this studio.
Really?
A small little retail place that we just wanted to give it a shot and give it a try. And it turned out that people were like, please, oh my gosh, thank you. Help me get rid of all this paint.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Nobody, you've got those cans piling up in your basement, in your garage. What an opportunity. So here's what I would say, folks. First of all, you got to do it now because Chris has had a tough time getting people to donate their paint. So I know you got it sitting there. I know you're thinking, wow, it's the holidays. I'd really like to get rid of this before we get into the holidays. Take it over there. Yeah, and where do they deliver it? Or do you pick any up?
Well, let me give you some information. So the process of recycling the paint is extremely labor intensive.
All right.
And so because our funding doesn't really exist from the state, we do charge a fee to bring the paint in.
Sure.
So if you have those small quarts, those are $2.50 a piece. If you have a gallon, those are $5 a piece, and those 5-gallon pails are $12.
All right, let me ask you a question. Can they take their latex paint, combine it into a bigger container like a gallon if they want, or a 5-gallon, and then just bring that to you?
That's a really awesome question, and that's a big no.
Oh, really?
And there's a reason for it. It's not just because we, are trying to collect a dollar amount, because I understand that that's how people would kind of save money to recycle
exactly.
it.
And also save room in their car.
Well, exactly. But you figure each one of those containers is really important for us to receive and recycle properly.
Yeah.
The majority of the paint that people are buying from big box stores comes in these plastic paint cans. And we're the only place on earth that really has
I don't have a plastic paint can. Mine are all metal. Something bypassed me in the last few years.
I actually just heard this. It was a discussion at Thanksgiving of how small the smaller cans are now plastic. Which I
It's-
didn't realize either.
Yeah, and the big box stores and the brands that are sold there, I won't plug them because I'm trying to get them to change back to the metal cans.
Them.
Good for you.
Yeah. They're saying, oh, well, these plastic cans are made from recycled material, but I'm sorry, once the paint goes in them, no plastics recyclers will take that product, and it's impregnated with metal too. So we have to disassemble all of that stuff, and again, it's labor intensive. So there's the fees that we're charging helps us take all of those containers and recycle those properly as well.
And the metal cans. So if you get metal cans, are you able to recycle those as well?
The metal ones are pretty easy. Yeah, the metal
Really?
recyclers are not picky. It's the plastic guys that are like,
Yeah,
no,
they-
that's going to ruin my machine, and I don't want anything gumming up in there.
All right, and I want. I'm glad you brought up the point about charging for this because nothing's free in this world anymore.
I wish it was.
Well,
and
don't
most
we
people
all?
assume that it is, but I say, well, why don't you come and work with me for a day, and you'll see why I have to charge.
Even places like TerraCycle charge you. They say ship it to us, but you got to use our box and you got to pay for the shipping to get it there. They'll recycle almost anything in the world, but we're at a point, folks. We used to take recycling for granted, and we thought it was all free, and we can just throw it away, and it just goes away, and somebody takes care of it. It's not the way the world works anymore. It's you really need to pony up for the privilege of living on this planet, and that's the whole point. It's not just that I need to get rid of stuff. This is your rent on the planet. This is how you pay for that.
This is how you pay for all the paint you bought that you didn't really need. But
Well, that's true, but you're also paying for your garbage service, whether it goes
and
through
you're
your
paying
taxes
for your recycling,
or
you're paying for everything. And unfortunately, in most states, the producers aren't paying, so it's the consumers that are paying.
Right. No. So, and that's another reason why we are a charity and why we've organized in that way, so that you can feel good that that money is staying right within our organization, and helping us to grow our ability to do what we do and teach more people who really haven't had opportunities to be taught.
And we got less than 2 minutes here, but it takes us to the idea that paint is recyclable. I'm trying to wrap my head around that, and you combine different kinds of paints and you can recycle that. What comes out is, we were talking yesterday on Mighty House. I was on Mighty House with Ron Cowgill, and he said, "Oh, I bet it comes out all brown." I don't know. What does it look like?
A lot of times it's kind of a gray, but you know what's great is that gray is in right now. So
it does come out gray, and that's what Rich said. He said, "Well, I've done that, and it's gray."
But you have at least 40 standard colors and custom colors.
I do, and that's another reason why it's so important not to combine those containers.
Because then you have more flexibility.
We can make the color that people actually want to put back on their walls.
All right, bye. So you see what they've got. Okay, let's combine these three and those four, because now we have a closer color. So can you then create the specific colors, or are you sort of at the mercy of what was given to you?
There's a lot of control that we do have, and it really depends on the sorting process. And I must say that some of our folks that are on the autism spectrum really find that satisfying to sort through all of the colors. So one more reason why don't combine it, because you're taking away the favorite job of somebody.
Oh my goodness, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
And it's just, it's amazing to watch somebody work and just go boom, 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 boom,
And
boom, boom.
they
all these
know,
colors.
and they can see it right away in a way that you'd be going, wait, is that more green or is that blue? I really know. It's like my arguments with Kathleen. She's always saying, no, that's
purple.
That's blue. No. And I say, no, that's green. And we just go back.
Just
and
trust
forth.
her.
Yeah.
She's all right.
Yeah, she's the graphics designer. I have to trust her. Okay, that's Chris McCarthy. We will be right back to talk about recycling paint.
I hope you know there's a day of the week, and it comes one time a year. It's 5 days after your Thanksgiving feast, and you can donate or volunteer, 'cause it's called Giving Tuesday. Hashtag Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday helps out more than you know. With your donations, the processes flow. Donate now, there's no time like the present. It could help a charity to pay the rent. It's called Giving Tuesday. That's hashtag Giving Tuesday. One more. Now it's time to show that you care. This day comes around just once a year. It's amazing to see how your donations affect the non-profit you select. And it's called Giving Tuesday. Look it up, it's coming up on Tuesday. Let's go with that.
All right. All right, there he is, Chris McCarthy.
I sing, I dance, I recycle, you know?
I know. You're a triple threat.
Sing, dance, recycle.
I am a triple threat.
Triple threat. Chris McCarthy is the founder of EarthPaint.org. Go to EarthPaint.org. And as he mentions Giving Tuesday, go to our website, MikeNovak.net, so you can find the GoFundMe campaign called Save Our Special Needs Program. And the link is right there. And you can help get them to $15,000 so they get the matching grant by the end of the year. All right.
I thank you in advance for that.
Lines are open right now. So we had a lot of questions we came up with during the break, and people asking on Facebook about where you can get your paint. I mean, first of all, we got to talk about the paint, the quality of the paint you produce from the recycled paint
that people can buy locally.
Yeah, and
what's it called, by the way? What's the brand?
Well, it's our EarthPaint brand.
Okay.
So you'll find the buckets, and on our Facebook page, you can see my logos and everything right here. So we sell our product, and we kind of keep everything nonprofit. So we sell in 6 different Habitat for Humanity restores.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one in Chicago, there's Chicago Heights and Joliet, and then we're in McHenry and Woodstock, and there's one in Elgin. So in addition to that, downtown in the city, there's a place called Rebuilding Exchange, which is really cool that they've given us some shelf space as well so that you can pick up our product. It's amazing. I mean, as a professional painter, I've been always looking for paint that helps me do my job better, okay? What makes me more money as a professional? And so we started to formulate this paint and found that the coverage is incredible. The dry time is better. The durability is good. I mean, it's
Why
really,
is that?
Well, you think about where we're getting our paint from. So people who are spending 40, 50 plus per gallon, which is pretty typical these days, that paint coats better. You know, there's a lot of technology in paint. And so they end up with a lot of paint left over that comes to us. And so now you're reblending a product that started life at 50, 60 bucks a gallon that now had a little bit of that water evaporate as well during the process. So you get even more pigmentation. So yeah, I can bore you guys with the science because that's what really interests me.
The question is, will it work in a spray gun?
Sure. You might dilute it just a little in a spray gun.
Yeah.
So then you get even more bang for your buck.
And it's indoor and outdoor paint.
So there is a major difference between indoor and outdoor paint, and the outdoor paints have mildicides and UV inhibitors in them, and so ours do contain that. I mainly sell it as an interior paint because our warranty for exterior wouldn't be as long as what a brand new paint would be, typically 15 years or something. So it's going to be a really good interior paint, and exterior to a certain extent where you don't want direct sunlight on it all the time.
What do you do about the VOCs?
So VOCs, oh my gosh, we could have an entire show about that.
Okay, we will.
Yes, I think we'll
Ron
save that
Cowgill's
for...
listening. Maybe he'll have you on his show and talk about that too.
So VOCs is an air quality thing, and although we're very cognizant of it, the VOCs mainly come from the tints that are applied once the color.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so the colorants are organic materials. And so when you have a volatile organic material, that's where people develop, or people who usually have respiratory issues already kind of are irritated by it.
Sure.
We do meet those specifications because as of about 16 years ago, the law says that everything has to be low VOC or zero VOC. So that's kind of a nice thing for us.
It's a byproduct of your byproduct.
All this stuff happens. This really cool stuff happens, when we're recycling.
All right.
So your recycled paint is what people have turned in, what they've recycled, plus what you're getting from the industry that they're not using.
Sure, and we do have some big supporters in the industry as well. So we do.
Do you want to
get,
name names?
Our biggest supporter is Sherwin-Williams. So ding, ding. Sherwin has been really good to us. They donate thousands and thousands of gallons of really brand new paint to us that are really some very expensive lines of paint that fortify the paint that we're remaking or upcycling. They've also donated equipment to us, like a forklift and stuff. So
my goodness.
yeah, big hugs to them. So
Give them a beer ding as well.
I know. So anyone who has purchased Sherwin-Williams paint, you've kind of helped us kind of grow in a passive way.
All right, and we did have a question about folks who want to donate their paint. Where can they do that?
Well, on our website, on earthpaint.org, there's a little link that says recycle your paint or learn more about recycling your paint right up at the top. We've got about 37 hardware stores that do paint collection for us. Most of those are listed on the site. And in fact, closest to here would be the Skokie Ace Hardware.
I think Scarce has some of them on their site, too.
Okay.
And
yeah.
Expect.
Yeah, and Scarce has been great. So we all love
So you
Scarce.
work with Scarce as well. What do you do with Scarce?
We'll do paint recycling events. So, yeah, we'll set up our truck and collect paint while they're collecting all the things that they collect and kind of be their partner for the paint portion of their drives.
We might need to have one of those in the city where folks could come.
Yeah, because the city of Chicago does not have paint recycling, and DuPage County doesn't have it. Thus, Scarce has stepped in.
Right. And we've done paint collection events like with Skokie. Typically, that's in April. And the last 2 years in a row, we've had snowstorms on that collection day. So that's been a lot of fun for us, watching the paint freeze in our truck as we're trying to collect it. You know, so... But yeah, we collect. I mean, the Skokie event had something like 1,100 cars come through.
Oh my
and most
goodness.
of those people were there for us, waiting in line, trying to get rid of their paint. So we're pretty popular at those events.
And I hate to bring this up, but at an event like that, do you charge the same prices, or do you get a better deal because it's an event?
We are charging the same prices, and our prices are really derived from how much effort it takes to process the paint.
Covering your labor.
Right. So we, after many years of figuring out how long it takes our staff to go through a pallet or two of paint, that's how we've come up with how expensive it is for us to do it, and that's really what we're passing along.
You know, there's a parallel here, which is batteries. I was cleaning out one of my rooms just the other day. He's waving to himself on Facebook there.
I know.
He's got his own Facebook setup. And alkaline batteries you're told now, just throw them in the garbage.
Right.
And if you go online and try to find out where to recycle them, it ain't easy.
No.
Even though they claim it is. You will go to Earth 911 and they'll say, oh, it's really easy. No, it's not. It's not easy to recycle an alkaline one single-use battery.
It's not even easy to recycle a plastic bottle. I mean, let's...
But the batteries, you take them to a solid waste collection. They say, oh, well, we don't take them. Take them to the hardware store. You go to the hardware store. They say, we don't take them. Go to the solid waste. And it's just nobody wants them.
Right.
And
I have a bag of them.
And exactly. And I've got a bag of them. I'm going to figure out. I'm not going to toss them. And you know, if there's billions of them, there's valuable metal in there, which you discovered with paint. If there's, millions and billions of cans of paint, that there's something valuable there.
You just said what people have been doing for 30 years, just accumulating paint, because they're like, well, one day we'll figure it out. Well, the day has come, people.
Yeah.
And not only that, but, you're helping multiple organizations because, I mean, yes, we're employing people. Yes, we're actually doing the right things with the product, but then that end product is helping other charities.
Can we mention your partner organization on labor?
We work with a lot of different companies now. We've worked with Little City in the past. We're trying to work with Ray Graham. There's a lot of other acronyms out there that we've worked with that I don't know all of them.
We'll do a list someday.
A lot of different groups you're benefiting.
And folks can go to earthpaint.org to find out this information. Boy, I really like what you're doing, Chris.
Thank you. I do too.
You should. You're doing great things. Thank you so much. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. When we come back, we've got Rick DeMaio talking weather. It's been a little bit crazy. Not so much in Chicago. And Chris, thanks for a little guitar, too.
Hey, sprucing it up.
So Santa gives gifts to good boys and girls. How does he get all over the world? Scientifically accurate Santa Claus. 91 million children around. Santa has to travel 3,000 times the speed of sound, or 1/1,000th second per house. 300,000 tons of toys or greater. The weight would create a meteor crater 2.4 miles all the way across.
Okay.
Who is that?
That is scientifically, it's a thing. It's a thing on the YouTubes. They do these scientifically accurate things about various subjects, including, thank you, including Santa Claus. And that's,
Wow.
there we go. I found that when I was, surfing
the inner tubes.
The inner tubes, and that's the kind of stuff you come up with. Welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We are going live to Newark, New Jersey, and Rick DeMaio. Rick, what the heck are you doing in Newark?
Well, my flight was canceled out of Scranton, Pennsylvania, so I had to change flights, including change rental car drop-offs, and I drove out of the mountains of the Poconos early this morning and was white-knuckling it through the highlands of New Jersey for about a half hour with freezing rain.
Yikes.
But made it down here to Newark okay.
Wow. So you're dealing... that was the thing I've been thinking about for 3 or 4 days now, is when you were going to be on the show, I needed to talk to you about how all I've been seeing in almost every headline for the last 3 or 4 days is this 1-2 punch, Thanksgiving duck and cover and get the heck out of the way. Except Chicago. We had really high winds that did some damage.
Yeah.
But other than that,
some rain.
Yeah, it was minimal, though.
It really was minimal. In the scheme of things, we didn't get hit by this storm. I was listening to KOTA yesterday in South Dakota, and they had blizzard warnings in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Well, we got hit with a storm. It was just on the warm side. So from a standpoint of if the rain that would have fallen yesterday occurred with an Arctic air mass, we would have been looking at 4 to 5 inches of snow on the ground, followed by some rain and maybe some sleet on top of that. So the rain snow line basically was from about Gaylord, Michigan to about Green Bay, just to the north of Minneapolis, and then you kind of went south to about, say, Omaha, out to about Rapid City, where they did have 30 to 40 mile per hour winds, which qualifies that as a blizzard. But even the Denver area was on the backside of the system, which was number 2. So storm system number 1 came through last Tuesday. That kind of moved north of us. We had a little bit of rain out of that. This was storm number, I guess, 3, if you want to call it that, because there was another one before that went through the West Coast and dumped a bunch of snow in the mountains. But by and large, most of the big cities, as you just alluded to, Mike, basically missed this. Even though the New York City will get about 2 or 3 inches of snow late tonight into tomorrow, much of today should be rain. But let me tell you something. When I was leaving my parents' house early this morning, and it's raining on the windshield at 21 degrees, that's not very comforting, is it?
No, it's not. And we got so David Perling, a friend of the show, lives out near San Diego. He says, here's an interesting weather fact relating to the recent 3 days of rain we had here in San Diego. And San Diego does not get a lot of rain.
No, about 10, 12 inches a year.
Yeah, he said, my rain gauge in Chula Vista collected 2.8 inches of rainfall. If that amount fell over, if that amount fell over our entire San Diego County, and it probably did, the total amount of water is astronomical. 220 billion gallons fell in the 3 days. That's enough to fill 1.4 trillion 20-ounce bottles of water. It would fill enough railroad tank cars to make a train that would stretch around the world 3.5 times. So there you go.
Fun with numbers, right?
Fun with numbers. Thank you, David, for those.
Yeah, and here's some fun with numbers. We look back on November 2019. We ended up nearly 6.5 degrees below normal. I have not yet figured out where that stands from all-time, coldest. I could do that a little bit later and send it to you. But we finished up with about 2 inches of water, which again keeps us at, I think, the 5th wettest year of all time. And we could actually be in for some more precipitation later on in the week. But thankfully, for those people that don't like ice or snow, it'll be in the form of rain. So even though we'll get somewhat of a sprinkled mist of rain and wet snow tonight, there's really not going to be any accumulation. And by and large, the pattern has shifted from one of Arctic air to very, very wavy cyclones moving across the United States with rain, wet snow, sleet, all those kind of things. But most of them, as you've seen the last couple of days north of us, and the next one looks like it'll be a wet one as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the thing. And thank you for the slideshow you send to us each week. I was sitting at home looking at it yesterday, and the take I got from it was that we're not likely to have a large snow event in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah, I think we got to be careful about the level of confidence. I think the next 7 days it's like 90%. Between 8 and 14 days it's probably about 60%, and between 15 and 28 days it's probably about 30 to 40%. And obviously all that depends on how these little systems come through. But overall, when you look at the overall what we call wave pattern across the northern hemisphere, sometimes when you get into like say these 2 or 3 wave patterns, some places can stay really warm for a while. Some places can stay really, really cold and dry. It's almost like a 7-wave pattern, meaning that all of the waves are very short waves, which does 2 things. It gives you a lot of variability weather-wise, but it's only variability from a standpoint of a wet or dry. You're not going to be very cold. So when you have this very wavy pattern with very fast westerly flow, the Arctic air basically stays up over the North Pole. So that's one of the reasons why you can go with a little bit more confidence longer term, is that there's not going to be much in the way of Arctic air.
Mm-hmm.
But are we going to be stormy over the next 7 to 10 days? Yes, but it's going to be still on the warm side and the wet side of things as well.
That's a really good point. That is, as long as the Arctic jet stream is not pulling down here. So as you say, we might get some snow, but don't look for one of those blasts and one of those superstorms.
Right, and again, I think this goes back to what I talked about, back in early November, was the pattern that we were in was pretty much left over from the summertime and also from the active northern tier stream of the jet stream, which was influenced, believe it or not, by typhoons. And once we kind of got that out of our system, now we're getting into more of a what we call progressive westerly flow, which means a lot of days of clouds and precipitation. But again, everything seems to be coming off the West Coast. And as long as that continues to happen, we'll actually stay mild. I would not be surprised if we can go back to being close to 50 degrees around here by Saturday, if not even mid-40s. And I think we'll probably have more days in the 40s than we'll have in the 20s. Because remember, we were cold back in November.
Right.
That wasn't even December. That was like January weather.
Well, we did this the other year where we had a blast of snow early, and then nothing,
Yeah.
and then the end of January we got really hammered.
Oh, we got So I know it's coming through real quickly here. So a little bit of rain mixed with snow tonight, but otherwise temperature is seasonal for the rest of the week.
That's it. Okay, great.
All right.
And
safe travels.
And a wavy pattern, and maybe we'll get some rain and whatever. Okay, Rick, thank you so much. Safe travels to you. Take care.
Take care.
All right, I want to thank everybody in the show today, Mr. Skeet and Chris McCarthy, Rick DeMaio, Ellie. Yes, even Andrew. I want to thank everybody. Until next time, go green or
go home.
Alan!
Stadler?
Alan!
What?
Alan! Alan!
Yes, it's over.
Alan!
How'd you like it?
I don't know. I slept through the whole thing.
Alan!
Well, you didn't miss
Alan!
much.
Alan! Alan!
The Hebo Tea Club's original pure Pau d'Arco Super Tea comes